Call the meeting to order in just a second. Wait till dead at 5:30. Y'all ready over there? Y'all ready? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting of the Columbus County Board of Education to order. If you would, please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Gentlemen, you have before you your final agenda. I need a motion to accept the final agenda for tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Long.
Second.
Second by Mr. Worley. Any discussion on the agenda? Anything anybody needs to add? Okay. All in favor of adopting the final agenda for tonight's meeting, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have an agenda for tonight's meeting. You have 3 sets of minutes, March 11th, March 19th, and April 4th before you. I need a motion to approve the minutes from those 3 meetings. Motion by Mr. Coleman. Second by Mr. Enzer. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Public comments? We have none? Okay, no public comments. All right, special presentations and recognitions.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and board members, we have some recognition, so if you want to come out front, and we'll do that and have pictures taken. So as we call your name, if you'll please come forward, we want to recognize.
Brian Bowers is coming from soccer practice, so let's get his and go to the next one until they get here.
Okay. We want to recognize the students, the essay winners for Major General Robert Howe chapter of the National Society of Daughters of the American Revolution. These students have received recognition also at a special program, but we want to make a recognition for them tonight. So we have Elena Strickland, a 6th grader at Tabor City School. If you're here, if you'll please come forward. Corbin Lovett is a 7th grader at Tabor City School. Keasia McClure, an 8th grader at Tabor City School. Elizabeth Stubbs is a 9th grader at South Columbus High School. Christina Falk is a 10th grader at CCC, Columbus Career and College Academy. And Corey Taylor is 11th grader at Columbus Career and College Academy. Are any of them here? Well, we'll just give them a hand. All right, and I think, oh, here come the FFA students. Okay, our next recognition is that on February 22nd, the East Columbus FFA Parliamentary Procedure Team competed and won the Three Rivers Federation Parliamentary Procedure Competition. They will compete at the regional level in Fayetteville in April, and then at the state level in June. The team members are, and if you will come forward when we call your name, please, Haley Parker, Charlie Tilley, Sarah Sessions, Josie Welch, Ben Long, and Eric Garcia. And the teacher, Mr. Fowler, is here. Come on forward, Mr. Fowler. And their principal is here, Dr. Bowen. Congratulations. And when is your next competition?
Next
Next week? All right, and you all are ready and have been practicing? And where is the June competition?
Raleigh.
In Raleigh, okay.
We,
All right.
we left our white angle at home, so.
Yeah. Line up in front of us.
Congratulations and good luck. Our next recognition is with the Columbus Baptist, is for the Columbus Baptist Association, Dave Heller and Teresa Powell. We want to recognize them for their efforts to making sure that students have adequate food available during the school year. They provide food bags, and they've done that for many years so that our students that are food insecure will have something to eat on the weekend and during school breaks. And then we also want to recognize Al Singletary and Charles Williams because they actually help load the boxes, deliver them, to ensure that we can get this, this food out to the students. They're the muscle of the group, I think. Thank you for providing this for our students. It means a lot to us and to the families for you to do this for our students. If you'll come stand up here in front or kind of squeeze together. Thank you. And I think those are our only recognitions, yes. So our next presentation is by Miss Butner, Lori Butner. She is a middle school CTE teacher, and she is at Nakina and West Columbus School. And she has started a robotics program, and so I'm going to turn it over to her. But we also have Tom McLam, our CTE director, and Tina Little, our CTE curriculum coordinator. They're here as well, but I'll let you introduce the students and whoever else is with you.
My two schools are piloted schools this year. First time it has been taught in Columbus County. Students are really enjoying it, so am I. The program is based on JavaScript. JavaScript, is everywhere in programming. And they are using block coding to program these little robots. And they use a program called Nucleus, which they have all of the programs in this component, in which they have a video, they have questions, they have an activity, then they have a discussion. They work as a group, they work as a partner. So they're taking off with it really well. The first part that they learned how to do was to drive the robots. I'm not going to let you please see that yet. We'll show that at the end. I'm going to drive them out because that's the best feature that they enjoy doing. The next, we have an animation. Wyatt, he is from West Columbus School.
Thank you for having the Coding and Robotics present to you today. We are delighted to be here.
The next feature that students learned to do was a draw function. Cody from West Columbus will give you a drawing.
moves. Oh,
Cool.
It was a pencil.
that's cool.
The next feature that the students learned to do was to design a code, making a square, a rectangle, a star, and a double triangle. Students? Abel, from the kind of middle, is doing the rectangle. Taylor, from the kind of middle, is the square. Wyatt, the star, and Ajaja from West Columbus, the double triangle.
I'm done. I'm done.
Last week, we completed Module 8. Module 8 included events, in which the students had to create an event on when the bot stopped and when it started again. They had to create a 9-sided dice to use in a game that they competed against one another to see who was the closest one in the least amount of rolls could reach 100. Kenya would like to show you her dice. Okay. This was not part of the curriculum, but as the students learn to use the Roblox and all the different components in the robotics, I gave them an assignment to create a skit. In careers, when I taught careers, we did a lot of role playing, a lot of skits. So I said, okay, let's perform these with the robots. Abel and Taylor.
Do you want to go on a walk? Sure, let's go. What is a robot's favorite food? Microchips.
I told them to keep it short. And last, we have one more animation, Miss Ajaja.
Thank you for having us this afternoon.
Thank you. Now they're going to show you the drive.
That's what they like to do the best. Oops. Thank you, Ms. Butner. Thank you, students. We appreciate it.
We were fortunate, this is.
Come to the microphone. please.
We did pilot this year with just those two schools, but next year we'll roll it out to the two other middle schools that are involved. This is sort of a segue into our technology program that Dr. Martin has done at East Columbus, which we're going to expand to West Columbus this coming year. And the best part is it's completely sustainable within our current budget, won't cost us any additional money, and it has really generated a lot of interest at the middle school level with our CTE programs.
That's good.
Great.
Thank you. Oh, wait, Mr. Long has a question.
The computers that they're using to control them, are they just the normal
Normal
Chromebook?
Chromebook.
So it's just, what's the issue?
No expense to us except for the equipment you saw, which was minimal
Sure.
for consideration for what we're getting out of it.
And I got one more thing. So they're just, they're writing the programs.
To operate this, is that
Right.
correct?
It's literally a way of learning computer programming.
Yeah.
Good.
And so the next part is Kelly wrote a grant for robotics, and we'll continue into doing some other competition type things with robotics as well.
Great.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, curriculum, instruction, and accountability.
So our first item is the Read to Achieve Camp. You know, we have to provide Read to Achieve Camp every summer. It's part of legislation. It's for third graders who do not meet proficiency on the EOG, and then second grade, if they aren't at the grade level and DIBELS, they have the option to come to Read to Achieve Camp. You can see that we're going to do it at sites this year instead of having it at every single school. It's going to be tough to do it at Williams Township because of the construction. Felt like we could combine and make a more of a theme type of a program at Read to Achieve Camp. We're hoping to increase the engagement and excitement about having to come to summer camp as much as we can, while making it obviously beneficial in terms of reading instruction. So I recommend that the board approve the Read to Achieve Camp proposal as presented.
I've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve the Read to Achieve camp that has been presented to us here. What's the pleasure of the board? Motion by Mr. Long,
Second.
second by Mr. Worley. Any discussion?
Yeah, so this is,
Basically voluntarily, but then once they commit, they usually stick it out and do the retesting for us. Are they pretty good about?
Well, for the most part, yes. For the most part. Now, we do have, so the migrant students also will be a part of this, so they have to do a summer camp, and so we tie them together. We do have some EC students that are going to have to come during the summer. We'll tie it all together. But most of them do come back and retest, but we do have some that don't stay the whole time. And we have some that don't come at all.
Okay.
Because it is a parent's choice.
Any further discussion? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the next item is the school calendar for next school year. Mr. Beck and Ms. Carter, they lead a calendar committee, and that committee has met a couple of times this year to determine what the calendar will be and to provide you a proposal. Remember that the calendar law is very specific, that you have to start you can't start before the Monday closest to August 25th. You have to end before the Friday closest to June 9th. August
Start no earlier than August 26th,
26th.
and then no later than Friday, closest to June 11th.
Oh, it's 11th now? Okay. And then you have to have 215 days in the calendar. So you can either have 185 student days or 1,025 hours of instruction. And then you have to have, it's either 10 or 11 holidays, depending on when Christmas falls, basically, 10 annual leave days, and then the rest, depending on whether you have 185 student days or you use the hours, the rest are work days, either optional or required. So there's not a lot of flexibility in the calendar to be able to meet all of those criteria, but this calendar meets that. So that's the traditional calendar. There also is the Columbus Career and College Academy calendar. Their calendar has a little bit, they use the 185 days for student days because they can't meet the instructional hours because we shuttle the students from the other high schools to Columbus Career and College Academy, so they have to go more days. But they still have to meet the 10 annual leave, the 10 or 11 holiday, the rest would be the work days, and it still has to be 215 days. That's the teacher's contract, is 215 days. They try to match up things as best as they can in terms of having some similar work days and spring breaks, but not always can that happen. I know Dr. English told me the other day that they were trying to make the college's spring break match to when our spring break is to try to alleviate some days off. I would recommend that the board approve the two calendars presented, the one for the traditional school year, traditional schools, and the one for Columbus Career and College Academy.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve the two calendars, one for traditional school year, one for CCCA for the 24-25 school year. What's the pleasure of the board? Motion by Mr. Enzer, second by Mr. Coleman. Any discussion?
Yeah, I read where there's ever how slight possibility that in a short session they're going to introduce a bill or have introduced a bill that would give us some relief. Could that change our calendar?
We can always come back and change it. So every year, there are lots of bills that are presented to try to give more flexibility locally to the school districts for the calendar. To be quite frank, I guess, the House is usually really good about having lots of those bills, but they don't ever make it to the floor in the Senate. There are some districts that have actually implemented calendars that don't meet the calendar law, and we'll see what happens in terms of, if something's going to happen with those districts. But there's discussion every year about whether or not there will be flexibility for local districts to make that decision. And really, charter schools, private schools, every other school can have whatever calendar they want, but traditional public schools have to follow this calendar law. And, we all receive state money, so why not allow all the same rules for everybody? But that's not the way it is right now.
And the way it is, it could be that those that don't follow the calendar, it could impact their funding.
It could, yeah.
And the 26th was the first day, earliest day that you could start. Is that what he said?
It's the Monday closest
August 26th.
to August 26th.
And it just happens to be on
26.
the Monday this year.
So why do we not entertain the 185 days for the traditional schedule? Why do we're doing it in hours, is that correct?
Yeah. It cuts down on the number of work days, basically. So it takes away, professional development during the year. It also, if you do 185 days and you have a weather day or you have some other event happen, you can't use hours. You can't use your hours to meet the law. You would have to make those days up if you missed a day due to weather.
But we're doing it at CCCA, and it's not a problem. We have the same weather days there, correct?
They do have a little bit more flexibility in terms of when they can start. So because they can start earlier, there's more time to kind of make up than it is in terms of the makeup because you still have that start and end date that you have to meet. CCCA doesn't have that start and end date that they have to meet.
Because they're alternative, right?
Because they're an early college, so they get a waiver for that start and end date.
I'm going to reserve my comments for later about these school calendar laws. Yeah, we've sat here, I've been here now going on 6 years, and I've approved 6 school calendars, and every time we say, well, let's see what the ones that are not doing it do, what they do to them. I have yet to hear of a school district that has been penalized by the state for not following a calendar rule. So, yeah, maybe it's time for us to put on the cowboy hat and spurs and go headlong. You know? That's the way I think about it. I mean, they hadn't penalized anybody yet. Now,
Yeah.
don't put that in the paper either.
I know
They
that,
just wrote it down, didn't they?
so there are, so last year there was a district that, there were some parents that filed suit against the school district. So they went back and they did change their,
Right.
their
But
calendar.
there were about 5 total last year, wasn't there?
Right, there, well, no, I think there were about
16.
13 to 15.
Oh, okay.
There is a current lawsuit right now in Carteret County that there are 3 parents who have filed suit against Carteret County because their calendar is starting earlier than the law. It'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of that lawsuit.
Tourism locations.
Right, right,
Carteret County.
yeah.
So,
The other one was in Union County.
Okay.
But they changed their calendar and, yeah. So,
it's archaic.
That's for sure.
Just my opinion. But
Ours used to be controlled by the backup,
that's correct.
but when the king died, so did that.
Correct. And I understand that, and I understand the tourism piece as well with the beaches, but how many high school age kids do you see working in the tourism industry now? Not a lot. Not a lot.
Well, just give everybody their choice. They want to start, let them start.
Yeah.
We want to start, let's
All
start.
right. I will hush, and we can go ahead and vote. All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Calendars are approved.
okay. The next item is a resolution that was presented by another district. Some other districts have approved it as well. This is from the Parents' Bill of Rights, and it really is just about, there's concern within the language of the Parents' Bill of Rights that suicide risk assessments are potentially not allowable in terms of the way the wording is in the Parent Bill of Rights. And we're asking that a slight adjustment be made in that so that we can feel comfortable about doing those risk assessments with students, and that the protocols are okay and we don't need a parent's permission before we do that in terms of, if a student is threatening suicide or we're concerned about a student having some suicidal risks, that we actually be able to go forward and take care of that situation and not have to sit and wait for a parent permission before we intervene. So I recommend that the board approve this resolution for suicide risk assessments.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve we sign the resolution considering suicide risk prevention. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Long,
Second.
second by Mr. Coleman. Any further discussion? Just a clerical point. The resolution that we have a copy of has April 11th. So, all right. Any further discussion? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the next item is just that we have moved forward with the construction manager at risk process for the construction on the eastern end, and realizing that we needed to actually do a formal board approval. It couldn't just be Mr. Beck and I making that decision. So we have reviewed the process for construction manager at risk. We've reviewed the process for design bid build. and it is our recommendation that we move forward with the construction manager at risk process for the school on the eastern end.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we proceed with the construction manager at risk process for the new school on the eastern end of the county. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Worley,
Second.
second by Mr. Coleman. Any discussion? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're using the construction manager at risk
Okay?
Officially.
officially.
Yep. All right, Mr. Beck?
Okay, next on the agenda, we have a proposal from P&W Fence Company, and that is for the South Columbus High School football complex outer fence. The total is $97,500, and the Jimmy G Foundation will contribute $65,000 to that total of $97,500.
So I'd recommend that the board approve the proposal from P&W Fence Company for the fencing at South Columbus High School.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve the proposal from P&W Fence Company in the total amount of $97,500, of which the Board of Education or Columbus County Schools would be paying $42,500 for.
32.
32. I can't add today. It's been a rough day.
$32,500.
$32,500. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Long,
Second.
second by Mr. Worley. Any discussion? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have the Evergreen School auction that was held on April the 12th. Mr. John C. Lenning from Rope and Associates had the high bid of $355,000, and he also paid the deposit of $35,500.
So, Mr. Chair, I recommend that the board accept the bid from Mr. Lennon of $355,000 for the Evergreen School.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we accept the bid of $355,000 from Mr. John C. Lennon for the Evergreen School property. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Enzer,
Second.
second by Mr. Long. Any discussion? I don't think there should be any.
Only to say thank you,
I'll
Mr.
check-
Lennon.
I'll check temperatures if there is. But all in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think I called all the flies in Evergreen on Friday, so during the auction.
Okay, moving along, next we have two invoices from Music and Arts. One in a total of $1,641.39, and the other totaling $210.17. Those two invoices were not sent from the company until February the 19th. That's why it seems like they were delayed, so the company did not send the invoices.
We don't have
But
to approve those, do we?
No, this is just
Just
informational. purposes.
Informational, okay.
Okay, and then finally, we do have a copy of the new deed for Williams Township School that was delivered today, and the purpose of that is before we can do any construction on that site, we have to own the property. So that property was transferred back to Columbus County Schools as the owner.
I don't have to sign that, do I? Nope.
No.
Nice.
So the next item is,
Is there action on that?
no, I don't think we have to, do we, Bill?
No, you just got review and action, that's why I asked.
Oh, but we fixed that before he approved the agenda. It's
Okay.
just review of information, sorry. So on the out-of-state field trips, you'll see there are several trips to Myrtle Beach. And so I would recommend that the board approve those out-of-state field trips as listed.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve the out-of-state field trips as listed for Tabor City School Beta Club, East Columbus Junior Senior High, Tabor City School 2nd grade, Williams Township 6th grade, and West Columbus School Pre-K. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Long,
Second.
second by Mr. Enzer. Any discussion?
The second grade, and I apologize, I did not look over that particular one, but second grade, are they getting extra, or they got plenty of, help to go with them?
I believe so. We require 1 to 10 at a minimum.
They usually put it on here, don't they?
Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then parents that are
Okay,
approved.
good.
Yeah.
Just curious. Second graders can be a handful.
Not our second graders.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those field trips are approved.
All right. We also have, next on the agenda are some overnight field trips and out-of-state. They are the Skills USA competition for South Columbus and Columbus Career and College Academy in Greensboro, and Tabor City Schools Junior Beta Club to Savannah. And I would recommend that the board approve those 3 overnight in-state and out-of-state field trips.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve the 3 overnight and out-of-state field trips listed on your agenda. What's the pleasure of the board?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Worley,
Second.
second by Mr. Long. Any discussion? When's the last day of school?
June 9th or something like that. June, I don't know.
Yeah, because
long
the
ways away.
dates on the Junior Beta Club trip to Savannah, Georgia is June,
Yeah, it's after the year.
it's after the year.
It
Yep.
is. It's
Yep.
after the year ends.
June
yes.
7th is our last day.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Any further discussion? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the next one is a partnership that, this is a continuation. We have had a partnership with UNCW. We've renewed this agreement several times. It's a 3-year agreement. Basically, it's an agreement to allow student interns from UNCW to come and do their student teaching with us. It also, they help us with our beginning teacher program and provide professional development. They partner with us in other different research programs or different professional development opportunities. But it's an agreement that we basically have a partnership with UNCW. So I would recommend that the board approve this partnership agreement between UNCW and Columbus County Schools.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve the partnership agreement with the University of North Carolina at Wilmington and Columbus County Schools. What's the pleasure of the board? Motion by Mr. Enzer,
Second.
second by Mr. Long. Any discussion? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So the next item is the policy on naming facilities, and we felt like we needed to update this policy. You all have seen at different times some different versions that I have shared with you just to review from other districts. This is the policy that we would recommend based on the feedback from you from those other policies. So I would recommend that the board approve this policy 9300, naming facilities.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve policy 9300 entitled Naming Facilities. What's the pleasure of the board?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Worley,
Second.
second by Mr. Enzer. Any discussion? All right. All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the next item are the proposed meeting dates for next year. Just trying to get things on the calendar. So I'd recommend that the board approve the proposed meeting dates, basically sticking to the same second Monday of the month unless there's a conflict that particular month.
I'll have to look at that December meeting,
Okay.
depending, I have that annual meeting that I go to this year. I
Okay.
believe it's in New Orleans.
Okay,
So I'll let you guys know once I know the dates on it.
okay.
Can the October 14th one That's right around that law conference, isn't it? Did
So we
look-
looked at the law conference and the
It's
annual
like-
conference and made sure that we didn't have a conflict.
The meeting will be Monday and it starts Wednesday or the same week, I believe,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Do we need to approve these?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yes, please. I'd recommend that the board approve the proposed meeting dates.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve the proposed meeting dates for the Columbus County Board of Education for school year 24-25. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Coleman,
Second.
second by Mr. Long. Any discussion? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're being too easy tonight. Jeez.
Let's hope it lasts. All right, the next item under the superintendent's update, just for your information, is a letter that came from the North Carolina School Insurance Fund, indicating that there will be a rate increase of 10% to our insurance policy. There was a question from a board member about the deductible amount, so I'm gonna have to check on that to see if that's the same deductible amounts or if that's a change. But this was for your information to know that we would have an increase of 10% on our insurance policies. Couple other items, you'll see also listed here is a report that the state board shared. It's a report that goes to the General Assembly about teacher retention or attrition and vacancies. And as you look at it, you'll see the data in here is basically from March of 2022 to March of 2023 is the timeline that they use. That's where they pick a date. They also pick a date that's the 40th day that they also compare. So they take a certain time in the year of 1 year and then they compare it to the same time at the next year. So the state's attrition rate was 11.5%. and its vacancy rate was 6.4%. Those are the highest since 2017. Ours, on the other hand, we actually had one of our lowest attrition rates, which was 7%, and the vacancy rate, which was 3%. The last 2 years, the attrition rate was 7% and 8%, and the vacancy rate was around 11%. But this year, we're at 3%. They also, within the report, it tells you the number of vacancies in the first 40 days. So the last 2 years, we had in the first 40 days, we had 38 and 51 were our number of vacancies, and this year we had 11. Day one, there were 19. We have 5 of those 11 that have still never been filled all year long, and they were in JROTC, there was a Spanish, 2 EC or special ed positions, and 1 math position. They were not filled all year long. Vacancies, if you fill it with a retiree, it's still considered a vacancy. If you put a residency license, or what some of you may remember, kind of like lateral entry, you put that is not a vacancy anymore. That's considered that you filled the position. But we had a much better year this past year in terms of vacancies and filling positions. Part of that, I think, was we did a better job of hiring early and not waiting too long. Being able to identify allocations, and I think it made it easier for us because we had some ESSER money to kind of hold in the back pocket that we would say we would let schools move forward quickly. With the funding in arrears, that we know how much money we'll get just to start off with in terms of it's based on this year's month 2, that will help us to be able to move more quickly in terms of allocations and then the hiring to be sure that we actually get people and not wait too long into the summer. So that's just for information. One other item is, just so that you know, we are in the middle of 3 audits right now. One is our local audit that we do normally, and then we have 2 audits that are going on around our ESSER funding. It's on all 3 of the ESSER allocations. One is around inventory and whether or not we have purchased things appropriately that are in our inventory. We've recorded them. they're being used in the way that they were purchased for, and that they were appropriately accounted for, and that we have our internal controls were documented and appropriately implemented. The other one is on the construction and real property projects like the HVAC or any of those types of things. And those, they're reviewing that we're in compliance with the Davis-Bacon laws, which is that the contractor actually pays comparable wages to the area, basically. So we're having to check with the vendors that we use for our projects to make sure that their payroll aligns to the Davis-Bacon law, and then that our internal controls were documented and implemented correctly.
And you wonder why this country's in $32 million worth of debt, $32 trillion worth of debt. We're worried about.
Yeah. So we're spending our time checking with vendors to make sure that they complied with that law.
And that Davis-Bacon law applies to any project you used ESSER money on.
That's right. Or any other federal money that we actually use,
That's the
yes.
same way we had to do.
Yep, yep. All right, so then you have dates to remember.
Before we skip that, why are we May 6th in for our board meeting?
Thought it was May 13th or something like that.
Did I request it?
Yeah.
Jesus. I'm losing my mind, y'all. Slowly but surely.
Somebody did, because I've already changed it.
Well, things have changed because I'm out of the state. I'm out of the county on the 6th.
So you want us to move it back to the 13th? Make up my mind, Ronnie, make up my mind.
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
We did change that because I was supposed to be going to a meeting, but the meeting got moved. That's why.
okay. So we will change the
I was
meeting.
supposed to be in Nashville on Broad Street, but
Okay,
not going to be there anymore.
all right. So we'll move the board meeting back to May 13th,
Perfect.
okay? All right. Do we need to vote on that?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Just for your information, under finance, that contract that's there, so when a contract is more than $35,000, I'm required to get board approval for that. But when there is a notation in the policy that if it's a recurring contract, I just have to share that for information. So this particular contract, and I only realized this once I was signing checks, that we were paying for this, and I was trying to figure out why we did it without board approval. But we've been paying this same contract for the last 4 or 5 years for the same amount. It's for our Office 365, I think is what it is. Let me make for sure Yep. It's for our internet, or our email and, well, all the Office 365 products that we have. But it's been that same amount of the $46,362.42 for the last, I think, 5 years. So it's just for your information. The next item is the budget amendment. So you'll see some adjustments that have been made in terms of the budget on this document. So the state funds, find my notes, hold on just a minute. Those were just additional allocations from the state for, I had a note and I gotta find it again. Transportation was one, and there were a couple of grants that we received. I think there was the digital teaching and learning, and there's one more grant. And I'm trying to remember what it was. So it was additional funds from the state for those allocations. In the federal grants, we don't always get all of the money up at the beginning of the year, so they just sent the additional EC funds. And that's what you'll see is the $1 million, the 1.4 million are the additional EC funds after they do December head count. We receive those additional funds. So that's where that came from. On the capital, the lease payment for the buses, even though the DPI is paying for that, so they give us the money, but it also is a payment that comes out of the books. That's what that $275,000 is, so it's making that adjustment for those funds. We had budgeted more than we actually received in the Indian Education Grant, so that was this reduction of the 26,000, or 29,000, excuse me. And then we also received funds for some Jimmy G grant and some use of facilities and Voc rehab money all came in. That's some of those other local revenues funds. So I would recommend that the board approve the budget amendment number 2.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve budget amendment number 2 as presented. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Inzer,
Second.
second by Mr. Long. Any discussion?
So the federal, the 1.4, that's a moving target. We don't know, can't calculate closer what that fund's gonna be.
It's 13% of your head count.
We pretty much know.
13% of ADM is the ceiling for what they will budget.
Yeah, so you know it won't go above that number. And so our head count, I actually had those numbers for you. Our head count this year, so we have 676 of our 5,380 on this particular day. That was April 1's head count. We do head count twice, December 1 and April 1. And that's 12.6% of our student body that's special ed or in the exceptional children's program. Our schools range from 6% of their student population to 16% of their population are special ed. But as Mr. Beck stated, we can't, we won't be funded for more than 13%. That's the cap. So we're under that, so we'll be funded fully for each one of our students.
So how do you budget next year? Do you use just the amount of money we received this year, or?
For the most part, yeah.
You have to complete the same process that you do with all the other federal funding. So we'll do that application, that grant procedure, and then we'll get the allotment. But yes, typically we use last year's funding as a starting point.
Can you said it was in December and April? They're generally about the same, aren't they?
Yeah. Now, they've talked about doing a change in EC funding, but we'll see if that will, the legislature has to approve that. So I don't know, we won't know until we see what happens with that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving budget amendment number 2, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, now we need a motion for closed session.
I move that Columbus County Board of Education go into closed session in ordinance with the opening meeting law, General Statute 143-318-11A, 1 and 3. Discuss information that is privileged, confidential, or not a public record. Consult with the attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body.
Okay. I have a motion from Mr. Coleman for closed session. So I have a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Worley. All in favor of going into closed session, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll be back.